The qualities of imagination. In imagination, there exist qualities that do not exist in intellect. Imagination brings to life within us the world in its spiritual state. Automatically, it perfects our spiritual quality. However, when it grows stronger, it adulterates the form of the world of action. Cultural experiments have brought about a great deal of enrichment in the realm of the physical sciences, as well as the spiritual sciences that are based on the physical sciences. But at the same time, the world of imagination and all the greatness of life within it have degenerated steeply. And so, present-day humanity is puny in relation to early mankind, particularly in relation to those great people whose imagination grew and acquired those portions it needed from this worldly intellect. Therefore, we justifiably still proclaim, even after the great development of the modern sciences, quote, "If the first generations were like angels, we are like human beings. And if they were like human beings, we are like donkeys," end quote. In the seedbed of imagination. In the seedbed of imagination lie the beginnings of intellectual awareness, in a constricted form. This form shines more and more, constantly spreading and developing. At last, from the clouds of imagination come forth a content that is wise and refined. Intellectual awareness spreads in truth over all existence, over nature and its ramifications, as well as the many components that surround nature from without. The same process applies to the seed of imagination, which spreads across the length, width, depth and height within existence. The heights of wisdom are at last revealed in a revelation that is consecrated in a manner appropriate to each of its levels. It is crowned in the kingdom of action, in the actions of being as they connect, with many and various bonds to their cause. And in parallel, the same process occurs in imagination. From the heights of levels, the content plunges into the steep depth. It proceeds from the beginning of prophecy and the divine, supernal illumination in the glory of holiness, to the lowliness of charisma, with its gestures and illusions. It proceeds from the beginning of cerebral clarity, an emanation of exceedingly fine purity, to the most confused delusions of imagination. Through all of these proceeds one line, divided into its levels. Those who gaze from the crown of the tree penetrate all the depths. There is neither darkness nor shadow of death, for Sheol and destruction are in the presence of God, and in the spirit of man all is intertwined and connected. He must elevate all and beautify it in order to bring the vessel forth to its maker. The distant gaze. Imagination sends the rays of its brilliance out to the distance, to give image constantly to that which is external to the essence of the thinker, and the intellect circles the central point in the soul of life, and images the existence deep within it. And in accordance with this, imagination is necessary for the intellect, that it may be helped by it for the distant gaze. And the intellect helps and supports the imagination to explain to it how great is the possession that is stored deep within it. The heart of the wise man knows. Feeling is swifter than intellect. In feeling, the word God is filled with fecundity and reality, even before the smallest fraction of all the multitude of enigmas concealed with it is deciphered. But this is not the case with intellect. Intellect requires toil. Without study and inquiry, one will find nothing. If feeling is exchanged for intellect, if one will desire to engage one's intellect without spiritual labour, in order to enjoy the benefit of what is already prepared, as it is possible to do in feeling, one's world will swiftly grow dark. Tangled thorns will flourish in one's spiritual portion. One will constantly be entangled, and one's spiritual path will be filled with stumbling blocks. Quote, "There is a time and judgment that the heart of the wise man knows," end quote. And that is, to enter the palace of feeling in its fullness, to take pleasure in its sweet things, and to allow the portion of the intellect to engage in its toil. Then the knowledge of God will enter one's heart in its most desirable form. The life force of all species. We find wondrous abilities in animals that at times astonish us. We can reproduce these only after great and long study. Even then, however, we can only approximate those achievements. What gives these animals their abilities? The lights of the life force of all species are fragments of a great supernal soul filled with wisdom and ability, which has been divided into many branches. The glow of this great soul, which contains wondrous wisdom and ability, shines upon each branch in a minute amount, like a drop of water from the sea. Still, because the point comes from the all-encompassing basis of wisdom and an ability that is mighty and exalted, its essential impression can never be eradicated. The impression brings forth its ability in accordance with the profound greatness of that wisdom, in accordance with the measure that the wisdom had had when it had been enclosed and connected, with a connection of a perfect life to its perfect source, when the wisdom had been the content of the crown of wisdom, arranged precisely by the supernal consciousness.